Dragon's Dogma 2 has just come out, and after a decade of waiting, people insisting this was one of the greatest action RPGs ever made, it comes out on PC and is a complete and total flop. The frame rates are garbage. Uh, the game isn't that great, and I think most glaringly, the thing that I think really kills it for the audience is the fact that there is a bunch of DLC in the game. And unlike with Devil May Cry 5, where people tried to like write it off and ignore it, like, oh, if you're good at the game, you don't need to buy the DLC. Like they put that shit there front and center for you to just take into account. Like, oh man, if you want some more costumes, you can pay 99 cents. Give us money for this or that, right? Like microtransaction city. This is coming right in the heels of people complaining about Animal Crossing New Horizons not having DLC, by the way. And this is a really good example as to why I think that's never ever going to happen, never should happen, right? Because the audience doesn't actually want it, right? When you look at what Dragon's Dogma is doing, when you look at like how these companies are pushing like their brand of microtransactions when you see what these creators are doing, you see just how like invasive and just how like ruining the experience it actually is, right? People don't look at like Dragon Dogmas 2 DLC and are just like, oh man, I can pay money for this, oh I'm so thankful. They're furious, right? Because at the end of the day you should be unlocking new things and meeting new characters by playing the game. It should not be locked behind an expansion pass, right? That should not happen. It should not be locked behind DLC, right? And Nintendo seems to understand that. They've cracked down a lot on DLC over the past couple of years. If they make you pay for DLC, typically it is worth it, right? Typically you get a lot out of it. Like Tears of the Kingdom, like people don't talk about this enough. Tears of the Kingdom did not get DLC, and the reason being is that like it takes development time and resources away from making new games, right? Like why exactly would you even bother with that? But like whereas Nintendo has like figured this out and knows what they want to do for the consumer, like Capcom is desperately trying to milk the gamer for all he's worth, right? They are trying to normalize this kind of exploitive microtransactions. They are trying to force you into this situation where you're going to have to like pay real money to get through Dragon's Dogma 2, right? That is how bad things are getting right now. And uh right now people are like livid. And I'm curious if this is going to like really impact like the game's popularity in the long term. I hope so, but we'll have to see. But until then, it's beginning to look like this weekend, which was loaded with releases, Rise of the Ronin, Dragon's Dogma 2, and Princess Peach Showtime. It seems like out of all of them, Princess Peach Showtime is the most popular. Who would have thought putting out like a finished game on the most popular console with a bunch of content with no microtransactions would have made the audience happy? Who could have possibly speculated that Princess Peach Showtime would have easily outperformed Dragon's Dogma 2? Who possibly could have done that? If there was any YouTuber out there who would do something like that, I would subscribe to him right away. I would buy all of his books. I would tell him how great he is. Like I would do that. But unfortunately, I don't know anyone like that. So unfortunately, we kind of have to just like, use the powers of hindsight and just like we should have seen this coming, all right? Like I don't know why people are surprised about this cuz I mentioned this earlier, but Devil May Cry 5 did have these kind of microtransactions. You could pay for red orbs and items in the game through paying real money. And like people really worked really hard, like overtime to damage control it back then. Like, oh, if you're good at the game, you won't need to play these things. But uh if it's like Dragon's Dogma 2, it doesn't have like the same kind of fanatical, like loyal, dick sucking fanatic fan base that DMC has. Like Dragon's Dogma is a struggling IP. People don't like to admit it, but the IP has never been popular. It's never been successful. Like it's just one of those things that was just a pet project of Itsuno, right? The only thing he's ever tried to make outside of DMC. right? And it's always been a complete flop. It's always been unoriginal. Like critics were trying to tell us that this game was good when it was first shown off, but now we're seeing that like we're seeing behind the curtain and seeing just how bad the game is, seeing how bad Capcom is, seeing how like terrible Dragon's Dogma 2 is. Like this isn't sustainable. Something's gonna have to give. People are going to have to acknowledge that Capcom are not good developers. They are not putting out games for the gamer. They are simply trying to milk you for all you're worth.